For now, I want to move to our next speaker, Niklas Nielsen. He's the Director of Innovation at Lund University, and before that, as Head of Open Innovation at Leo Pharma, he was central in the establishment of the platform Odin they just heard about from Marie-Louise. And you have 2 decades of experience from industrial R&D and from working with open collaborative models, trying to bring academic and industry collaborations forward. So I look forward to hearing Niklas's take on this, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. That sounded very impressive there. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me here today. I'm excited and happy to be in the crowd still, even though I moved slightly out of it. So, my name is Niklas Hilson. I have a background in medical science. I'm current Director of Innovation at Lund University, which is in Sweden, across the bridge. And I'm going to talk to you about open innovation and industry and open innovation in science, how we need a boost and why that is needed in pharma. First, I have to ask you a question. Who here is from academia or government or institutions, i.e. non-industry? Who's academia? Cool. And who is industry? That's cool. Not as many. Take a note. And here's the clicker. Let's go. So hopefully I'm going to tell you today why I am here and what I can contribute with, and going to get into some industry pains and need of change. Something is happening in industry. I will tell you the views that I've seen, and I will tell you what difference open innovation hopefully can make from that perspective. And I have a few slides about what kinds of openness are we actually talking about when we think about open innovation in the industry. So it takes 2 to tango. Industry, academia, collaborations, and open perspective is what we hear today. We had lots of great talks today. I'm in the shadow here of Dylan, Ailed, and Marie-Louise, and it's great. But here we have academia and industry can switch those labels if you want to, but we need to work together. I'm saying we, because now I'm both industry and academia. I have both perspectives, but that's the view. And Marie, you said the final end goal in academia is to create value for society. And I agree. The guy might not agree. Industry might not agree that the end goal is to create value for society. It might be to create value for the shareholders. And we have to be frank and honest to realize what's in this game, right? It's not for society, it's for shareholders to increase your investments. So therefore, the incentives and the models will look different. And it takes a while to kind of adjust and get to the same level. So background, me. Let me see. I have been working with industry and university collaborations for a long time, and I've really been trying to push them in to solve the problems that we're facing. And open innovation is one solution to a lot of problems we've been having in the past. I was previously the head of open innovation at Leo Pharma for many years, 7 or 8 years, and I'll be talking from that perspective mostly. I'll be sharing experience from R&D, collaboration and partnership. I mentioned that. I'm currently Director of Innovation at Lund University. It's a university of 45,000 students and about 8,000 staff. It's a fairly large one. And there is a different view on IP in Sweden, as you might know. So the university has no tech transfer office. That might be a good thing, and it might be a different thing, because the IP belongs or is handled by the professors or the research or even the students themselves. So what we do in the tech transfer office, we make sure that inventions or knowledge is actually put into use in society. The focus of our department that I'm heading is to make sure research becomes commercialized startups or even non-commercialized methods or things that we can share to society. But it's a lot of creating startups with a focus on making that happen and not protecting the IP. So it's a little bit different in Sweden. So this is the dark slide here about some change, pressure, and pains that we are facing in the life science industry. And I'm saying we because we're all part of it, either as customers or participants or researchers. And I have a couple of slides to kind of show you what's happening from my perspective in industry. And first of all, the world is changing exponentially. We all have heard it. We're going from scarcity to abundancy, and it's happening in everything pretty much. And the industry is freaking out about this pretty much, actually. They can't deal with this. So talk about later about the chess play and how the rise of grain grew exponentially. It's a really good story. And the amount of data, I think we're producing 2.5 quintillions of data bytes every day. That's 2.5 and 18 zeros of data bytes every day. How are we going to make sense of that? I think we're closing up to 2 million scientific papers every year. Millions of new scientific. We all also know we can't trust them, of course. But we have to relate to them. And how do we do that? This is a huge task for the industry, and they can't deal with it. They need our help. There's a pressure from the payers. They're demanding different things from the industry companies. There are a need for different business models. You pay for a tube, you pick it up at the pharmacy, you put it on, it might not work. It's not going to last forever, that kind of model. And technology. Talk about abundance, right? This is really, really increasing. There's so much new tech coming out. And maybe 10, 20 years ago, you could sit at a big pharma company and say, this is new, let's take it in and explore it. You can't do it anymore because there's so much happening all the time. Which of the horse should you bet on? Should you do this one or not? So you have to find your partners to deal with these things in a way you haven't been able to do in the past. And innovation is even more required on the global market. If you want to survive as a competitive pharmaceutical company, you need to really consider these things. And carry on as you usually been doing might not cut it. Probably won't. There are new players. It used to be the big science companies. You knew who they were. You kind of could relate to them. Now it's Google, Apple, Facebook as well, competing for the same customers. But are we doing the same thing? So there are new players on the block. And there is a need to change from a tech push to a need pull. There's a lot of stuff going on that we try to find a solution for. And now we're starting to see the patients need to have a say as well. Lovely circle, by the way, with the plant-based. The line became a circle. I do the same line for pharma industry a couple of years ago because the patient was at the end and the reason was at the left and over here, right? And now we need to pull the whole thing together. So the patients are actually in the beginning defining the problems that will help them have a normal life. And then you create the tech that is needed to solve that problem. Otherwise, we're going to keep spending the same money on the same kindnesses that we've been told before without actually solving the real problems defined by the patient themselves. And there's some pretty good movements about that for the patient perspective. And the tech companies or the industry, pharma industry companies here need to find ways to identify the best solution, not just the one that happened to develop themselves. And this is all different from how we used to work. And my last slide on this topic will be, it's no longer possible to rely only on internal knowledge only. It's starting to become obvious, taking the slides I showed you before, that the industry needs to access, identify, and use external knowledge in their internal processes. And currently, acquired external assets scales very poorly. If you do the same MTA discussions, usually it takes between 6 and 12 months to negotiate an MTA just to send something to try if it works, because it's not scientifically, it's based on legal and business terms. So the traditional process with MTA, legal and business terms negotiations are slow and non-explorative. What happened to what if? Well, can you put that in a contract? You can't really. So we have to rethink, how does a big company, a pharmaceutical company, relate to the external world, and no longer perhaps as the big guy versus the small guy. Because if you ever worked at a biotech company, you're this guy, maybe even actually academia. And when you sit at the table and you talk to that guy, you can't really push your agenda, can you? And change it. Because it used to be a buyer's market. Leaders, you could say, well, we got the money, so we're going to pick the one we want to work with. you're going to have to conform to our terms. That is slowly changing because the industry is starting to realize, oh shit, we're going to need to work with you, and you, and maybe the best one. So we're going to have you guys come to us. And here I think open innovation is going to help make a big difference in how the industry creates their interface to biotechs and to academia in a much more fair way. Because that's how it used to be. I think it still might be this way, but we're slowly changing into a more fair collaboration partnership environment. So that is a little bit quickly about what the industry is facing right now. And I also put together about, in innovation drought and bigger costs and a lot of things happening in the world. There's a lot of change pressure on the industry. And this is what you have to do when the world changes. You have to adapt. Sometimes you adapt just before you're going to die, and sometimes you do it just after. Hopefully, we'll do this together just before, or starting now, actually. It's not the strongest device, not the most intelligent one. It's the most adaptable one. And here, remember, we have Tango, we have two, both academia and industry in this case. So, and in company talk, it means this. The smartest person doesn't work for you anymore. This used to be the case when the big company can go out and hire the biggest specialist, the people, the smartest ones. But since data is moving so fast forward, technology is moving fast forward, and science is 2.5 million papers a year, you can no longer even identify who the smartest person is at this point. It is going to change tomorrow. So you can no longer have the smartest person working for you. Sorry. You're going to have to find it somewhere else. And if you realize this, you need to put up a system where you can relate to this and work with them anyhow. And here's hope for open innovation and open science. You can work with these people without actually hiring them. So it's a bright future for being academics, actually. You can work with the industry without actually being part of it. And they're going to need you to do this. So what difference can open innovation make? Sorry about the title. So open innovation from a practical perspective can provide a way for external parties to connect to the industry scientifically. There are a couple of great use cases we've seen before today, how the industry can connect to the science, perhaps without giving up too much necessarily, but if they do take a step further in, they actually receive and gain even more. And my second point here is one I actually really much like myself. From an industry perspective, you can access knowledge you didn't even knew existed before. Because you can always say, well, I need a faster car. Let's go out and find a faster car. But if there's a better solution, you can't go out and ask for it. You can provide your problem, the spec that you can work with. You can say, who has a solution for this? Who can help us work with it? And here, open science and open innovation has a real useful place. We're looking for something that's actually going to change how you do things without even you knowing about it beforehand. So open innovation can provide the means to identify, access, and absorb external knowledge from an industry perspective. It can also increase the numbers and really speed up collaborations, but also make them more relevant. And we saw this specifically in the open innovation pattern that we used to have at US work with Leo Pharma, that the numbers could really, really increase, because in an open innovation setting, you can take away all the traditional hurdles and make it so much faster and actually make it more relevant. And the relevance is a really, really strong point, because if you tell the world what science do you have, what problems do you have, well, then you actually might get a relevant solution. If you have the good old idea box standing over here, you can drop your idea for the better canteen. You might get solutions all over the place, and that rarely are useful or practical or even relevant. So being more transparent about your scientific needs as an industry, you might find more relevant partners, and having a change in how we deal with IP and business terms and legals, you also have a more speedy way to set up those collaborations. And the industry really needs this. So explore collaborations with external partners, much easier if you think and act with open innovation and open science. Again, from an industry perspective. So let's see. Yes. So we need more external input to R&D, but there are some hurdles for the industry. And some time ago, I asked this question at the conference specifically for life science open innovation people. And disclosure, ownership, and control are the three biggest issues for the industry to actually act and do more openness. They all agree open innovation is the way to go, that this can't do it. Because they can't disclose anything, because what if the competitors found out? You might also get a good solution for a problem. Or they need to have full ownership of everything that comes out. Because if I don't benefit from it, well, maybe someone else will, and that it will be my loss because they got it some gain. Or the third one, control. If we put in something in here, we need to make sure that we can benefit. That there need to be a first right to negotiate for us. Otherwise, we cannot commit to this. So these 3 points are the main issues that we've seen in real working with open innovation in the industry, but they can be solved. But these are usually the ones that really are the big problem. So many operation programs that you see today, they address or reduce one of these, maybe 2, sometimes 3. We see more of those, of course, in the academia that you mentioned here before today. But the industry, they are still behind you. You can't even see them here, they're way behind there. So I'm not going to spend time with this one, but there is, openness, open science, open data, open access, open innovation, open this, open that. There's a lot of different definitions and a lot of different meanings, and it's a big mess. Someone else can sort it out. So, open innovation as an interface for expert collaborations. This is how the pharma works usually, right? You start over here, you have some idea, you take it all the way to the clinic. That's the process. It is really, really secret, so no one knows what you're doing, otherwise you can patent it. That's how it works. That's also why it's really hard for the guys outside to actually come with a good solution. They're knocking on the door. Hello, we have this great cure for cancer. Literally, you go away. We don't work with cancer. We don't want your inhibitors. What do you want? Oh, sorry, we can't really tell you. It's a secret. It's difficult to create long-lasting external collaborations if you have that kind of close mentality. But that's how it is. And if you want to do it, you can create a contract that it takes between 6 and 12 months to negotiate, and then maybe you can discuss, and then you can find out it didn't work. So with an open platform, you can dissolve the barriers at the early stage, disclose what you need, you can disclose some resources, and what you actually would like to have. And then someone, the biotech or the academic researcher, can actually then suggest something that actually might make sense. And this is actually a big deal for industry. It might sound like a very easy solution, but it's a big thing. But it's going to be that way. I would bet on it. And also, you will incentivize others to work with inhibitors, to create some science out here, some papers, and suddenly someone else will create an opportunity for you in a win-win situation. So there's a growing interest for open innovation. I would say the last 5-10 years in the industry, people are realizing, oh, this makes sense. It's just like external collaboration with a new label. But if you really want to work, you're going to have to kind of put some effort into and overcome those hurdles. So external collaborations are critical. They all agree to this in the industry. But how to implement this realization very greatly varies. But I think we're slowly moving towards a consolidation and a common language about what do you mean by open innovation and open science. But we're not there at all. Remember the two tango people, the industry and academia, 2 different kind of end goals. Slowly what is open innovation, what can they expect, and vice versa. So we need more concrete use cases and examples where we involve both industry and academia. And they're starting to come out, and I'm really happy to see those. And they're, of course, different kinds. And I'm going to tell a little bit more about these things down here. I have a few examples, not the best one and not the full one. I forgot to put GSK on. But as you see. But some ways to open up for the pharma industry. Crowdsourcing and innovation challenges seems to be the thing nowadays. It's been there for a couple of years, and we work with open innovation. We have a crowdsource here on the platform. Come give us your best inhibitor or best solution for patients' unmet need. It's a way to slowly open up and tell the world what you like to do, what kind of collaborations you're looking for. I wouldn't call it open innovation, but it's a way to open the door at least for someone to peek in and say, you're interested in that kind of thing. Needs partnership. We really want someone who can solve this problem, kind of crowdsourcing. A lot about providing research grants, but it's not really open innovation. But you can find them on some of these open innovation platforms. Money to do academic research, maybe together with industry. At least it's out there. Better than nothing. You can find some shared lab facilities. And the last point I like a little bit more, sharing assets and tools, molecules, and other resources. It was mentioned earlier today about everyone has their own tool sharing platform nowadays. It didn't used to be the way, but I'm seeing that change. And I think that's one step towards actually merging and sharing resources and knowledge without thinking about restrictions in the IP and the usage. So I think it's a good move forward. It's a slow little baby step forward, sharing the tools, because it's not going to be the best tools. It's not the best molecules, but it's going to be something at least. Let's be honest. So let me see here. Yes, so one of these platforms that I've been working with for many years is the Leo Pharma Open Innovation Platform. It's just an example of how to address a specific issue in how to fuel the pipeline with external opportunities. So it was pretty much, the value proposition was, we will test your molecule for free with no strings attached. And it was done using public methods, open assays. This is how they work. These are the conditions, these are readouts, these are the cell lines, cell type, primary cells, and so forth. And anyone had free access to use those assays to test their molecules, to see how they work. It's a very simple thing to do, but it took us a long time to get all the paperwork done at the company. The partner doesn't have to disclose the structure of the molecule. So this platform was designed from the outside in perspective. Regardless of the industry needs, we said, so what do they need? The ones who will be knocking on the door saying, can you please test my molecule? They need complete security that we won't steal it, because that's the biggest concern. The company will steal it. In reality, it's really hard to steal something. And then the partner get to own all the data. So the molecule that Leo Pharma didn't know what it was tested in labs, some results were generated, and then sent to the partner. And they could do anything with the data. And there was no business obligation. There was no first right to negotiate. You can come, you can go, you're in full control. These are all 5 very important points for why a biotech or university partner will actually come and work with this open innovation platform. And we really pushed this one almost to the limit of what we could give up from an industry perspective. But the benefits was that we saw lots of partners coming in, lots of explorations, doing science with us. So in that case, it was a success. But this was just one example of how you can create a platform addressing a specific need by really changing the rule of engagement. And we mentioned trust before. No one would trust a small Danish pharmaceutical company from a global perspective that wouldn't even know existed, right? So how can we put trust on the paper? So by putting these 5 points in the agreement, you could create a trust on the paper that they would think, oh, this is something for us, there is no risk, and I won't be cheated. And then they came. So then I made this traditional R&D pipeline. The green arrows start to the left. I added methods and tools, actually. And then disease understanding, idea phase, target validation, hit finding lead, clinical candidate, and trials, and on we go. And then I try to a little bit map what kind of open innovation platforms exist today in the industry, and what do they do? So without going into too many details, we see the favorite up there. Oh, yeah. Open targets, it's a consortium of pharmaceutical companies putting money in to explore what targets are relevant for what diseases and sharing all the data online. So great initiatives. It deals with target validation and target identification, which is a major headache right now for the pharma industry. Finding new targets and finding data to validate those targets, it's a big issue. You got that one right. And Odin is a great platform to explore academia industry collaborations, maybe in methods, disease understanding, because you can create tools and methods that then can generate IP. Illerheim has a very specific, they have the open meat platform. It's very specific, and they offer tool molecules, like many others do. Their own tool molecules that they then, for free, you can just kind of go put your shopping cart and put molecules in it, and you can get the molecules sent to you, and you can do experiments. Great point before. And it's unrestricted. Anyone good? AstraZeneca and Merck and Pfizer and Novo Nordisk as well have similar platforms where you can ask for their reference molecules, tool molecules, so you can do your science with their molecules, so you can they get you to do their science. It's a great incentive to get others to work on your science for free. And they all have different setups. So sometimes you have to apply for them. Sometimes you need to kind of tell them what you're going to do beforehand and so forth. But in general, they're fairly easy. So, and also AstraZeneca and Merck, these two examples here, they have a lot of things on their open innovation platform. It's not all going to be open, but it's open from their perspective. And you can apply for grants. You can go to a boot camp. You can learn more about their needs. But it's more or less kind of standard things with a new label. But there are some things such as sharing tool molecules that you would not dream about 10 years ago, pretty much. So I think that's a great step forward. And then one of my personal favorite was the Eli Lilly program, the Open Innovation Drug Discovery program they had many years ago. I was greatly inspired by that program. It was canceled a couple of years ago, and they also offered free testing in their phenotypic assays as well. It was a bit quirky how to get it to work in reality, but they actually took the lead. So I think the industry owes them a bit on this one. And then the Leapharm platform is also similar to a way they could test some else molecules in order to do hit finding, maybe do some lead optimization, and find some later stage molecules as well. Then we have a different league here, Medicine for Kids. Can we hear more about it later today? And open source malaria, which also we don't patent. We put all the molecules on the net, and then we see what happens. So now we're going to face some issues, how to actually take it from here onwards. And that's an interesting solution here from M4K Pharma. Time is soon up. Yes. We're going to skip that one. And so the hurdles to get the industry to actually do this is the transparency. So you have to be transparent, otherwise you will not get relevant partnerships. And you have to accept less control over the IP. And if you can also not claim any obligations, like first right negotiate, it will allow many more biotechs to come to you, because sometimes they're developing an asset in one direction and they can't do it in another direction with commitment. So you will create win-win situations. And this is the key. We will all win here. And this is because we see it from an ecosystem perspective. Innovation today, as I see in the pains, is too complex to be mastered by itself. And the industry is starting to realize this now. They cannot do this alone anymore. And now they need to figure out what kind of platforms do we set up to work with this. Because we are all interdependent. And my success depends on your success and vice versa. And the sooner we get this, the happier we'll be. My last slide. So a few points that I believe in, my takeaway coffee here is innovation happens through collaborations. Nowadays, even more important to realize, and openness increases the chances of collaborations. Because if I was sitting by myself in a box, no one would even know I existed, right? And the cost here is going to have to be disclosed more. Well, the cost is, well, yeah, sorry. You have to disclose more, and you're going to have to let go of some control. There are many different initiatives, more or less open. The trend is towards right now being attractive to attract partners from this perspective. Hopefully soon we'll see by actually providing a win-win situation. So some initiatives stand out and they inspire us for the future, such as the ones we heard about earlier today. Thank you very much.